So I'm reading. Everybody has got the text for what we mean by spirit. Okay?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
Okay. I start the reading. For what we mean by spirit is self-existent being with an infinite power of consciousness and unconditioned delight in its being. It is either that or nothing, or at least nothing which has anything to do with man and the world, or with which, therefore, man or the world has anything to do. Okay, so he is defining spirit. Spirit is a very generalized word for God. If you use the word God, immediately the idea of someone like a human being comes up, who is far superior to humans, but he is like a human being. So that's why the word spirit includes also the personal aspect of the divine as well as the impersonal aspect of the divine. So spirit. And what is its characteristic? Main characteristic? Self-existence being. Self-existent. Nobody has created. Everything in the physical world is created. But the divine is self-created. He is himself. Actually, from a logical point of view, it's very difficult to understand this. How can you create yourself if there's no power? So, for the mind, it's a big problem. What is this? When you go back, something has been created. And when you think of something has been created, a shop has been created by the owner of the shop. Who has created the owner? Okay, let us say God has created the owner. Who has created God? There you get stuck. He has created himself. How can he create himself without, when nothing is there, how can he create himself? It's a big problem for the mind. But anyway, we have to accept that on faith. And your faith will be justified with experience. Okay, so self-existent being. And if he is self-existent, what are his characteristics? Infinite power of consciousness. So power is there, but infinite. It is he who has made this huge, vast, unthinkable cosmos. Okay. What power you need to create that universe? Okay. The universe now science is discovering, because we have got the Hubble telescope and other telescopes also are there, which can look far into the last recesses of the universe. There are billions and billions of stars, millions of planets. We used to think only 7 planets. Before we used to think only there are 7 planets in our Milky Way. But now they have discovered that there are 500 light years away. There are huge constellations and huge stars. Okay, so who has created all this? He must have infinite power of consciousness and unconditioned delight. Our delight is conditioned. If I eat an ice cream, I get delight. It is conditioned. If I don't get the ice cream, there is no delight. Even I may have other delights also, but they are all conditioned. Now this is again self-existent delight. Okay, ananda. Okay, so these are the, he is defining spirit in its being. Okay, being also is, again there is substance. He has subtle substance with which he creates the universe of gross substance. Okay, so it is either that or nothing. You have to say it is either that or nothing, because in spiritual experience sometimes you get the experience of a nothing. Okay, the nirvana experience, the self, where you feel that there is nothing, but there is something which is indescribable. That's why he's saying it is either that or nothing, or at least nothing which has anything to do with man and the world, or with which, therefore, man or the world has anything to do. So this is spirit. Okay. So, matter, body is only a mass motion of force of conscious being employed as a starting point for the variable relations of consciousness working through its power of sense. Its power of sense. Okay, so let's see what he's saying. Matter, body, is only a mass motion of force. It's a mass move. The whole world is nothing but force. But it's a mass motion. Mass motion, it is gross matter. Okay? Substance. Condensed substance becomes mass motion of force in the physical world. But it is conscious being. Okay? Even matter, there is consciousness in it. We come to a conclusion. In the beginning, you may feel that there is no consciousness in matter, but it is there, hidden, hiding, employed as a starting point for the variable relations of consciousness working through its power of sense. So, how does matter show that there is consciousness? It starts making a starting point, variable relations of consciousness. The consciousness first appears in small animalcules. Animalcules, the one-cell creatures that exist in the physical world. Okay, they have no senses, just they have life, prana. So that is variable relations. The consciousness of the animalcule is different from the consciousness of the worm, is different from the consciousness of the frog, the different from the cat, the dog, and finally man. Okay, so these are the variable relations of consciousness. Consciousness is not uniform and everywhere the same. It's got all variations, right from almost zero to mental consciousness in the physical world. Okay, so, and how is it working? Sense. The senses are the sign of consciousness. Okay, and these senses also in the beginning, the animalcules have no sense. Maybe a sense of touch, and then slowly, slowly, other senses come in, and finally, in man and animal, higher animals, you have senses, five senses. Okay, so this is the, he is starting from there. Then he's saying, nor is matter anywhere really void of consciousness. Now he's saying that even matter, there is consciousness. In the beginning, you don't feel that there is any consciousness in matter, but then you look very carefully and you will see that it is producing very meaningful forms. How can mud produce a living creature? How can it produce the most beautiful trees with the most delicious fruits? How can mud do that? Okay, how can mud produce a lily or a lotus and such magnificent fragrances? So that's why saying matter also, there is consciousness in it which is slowly awakening. Then he's saying, for even in the atom, the cell, there is, as is now made abundantly clear, in spite of itself by modern science. Even science is agreeing, okay, that there seems to be a consciousness even in the atom. The other day, last Friday, we discussed this, that there seems to be a will even in the atom. Okay, so for instance, okay, it's a very interesting thing. I'll expand a little more on it because this is a very interesting thing. So suppose there is a flood, okay, and water is rushing vast from the mountains. It is coming down and entering the plains and going everywhere. Are all the particles of the water participating in this movement downwards? Not necessarily. Some particles will go off here and jump off and remain static on the banks of the river. Okay. When there is a huge crowd, okay, huge crowds also behave in the same way. Okay, like water rushing. When there are riots, they have seen that this also happens. All the human beings, they come like a flood, and they all seem to act in one purposeful action. But one or two human beings may escape, may come out. So the movement of a flood or the movement of an avalanche, okay, is the same, basically the same as a movement of even in a riot and a mass movement. It's the same. Exactly in the same way, even the atoms which are all moving are subject to the laws of physics. That's true. But one or two atoms may come out, okay, may come out of this law that it is being subjected to. So this is the they think that it is the beginning of a decision not to participate in the law. Okay, so it becomes a very interesting thing. It shows that there is a consciousness even in the atom. Okay, and also they have found also that you cannot determine absolute law is not there even at the atomic level, because they have seen that, as I told you last time, there is a principle that there is a if you want to find out the position of an atom, okay, you can, it is all atoms are moving now in the physical world, everything is moving. So if you want to plot its position by x, y, z coordinates, length, breadth and height, if you want to do, you can find out the position of a atom instantly, but you do not know what is its velocity. How is it moving? You don't know. And if you can find out the velocity of the atom at a particular spot, you don't know where it is. So there is the uncertainty principle, which shows that even there, laws cannot bind the atom. Now, consciousness and laws, are they not opposites? Just think. Okay. When there is consciousness, I can select not to be part of the law. Okay. So this is the opposite. Okay. And both these go back to Chit and Shakti. Shakti creates laws. It is force, but it is force which acts under compulsion. It is force that makes possible laws. But freedom is exactly the opposite. And consciousness is exactly that. So even at this physical level, the consciousness also is there as well as force is there. Okay. At the lowest level, force is more apparent, but consciousness is there hiding. At the higher level of the Brahman consciousness, the force is held back. You can say it is hiding, but the consciousness is full. So at the highest level, they are equal to each other. Okay? So this is what Swami is saying here. Consciousness is there in matter also. I have given you the scientific basis as well as the philosophical argument for it. Okay, so nor is matter anywhere really void of consciousness. For even in the atom, the cell, there is, as is now made abundantly clear, in spite of itself by modern science, a power of will and intelligence at work. In fact, this is exactly what Mother is now discovering when she was transforming her body. Between 1970 and 1973, her whole body, each cell became conscious. Look at our condition. We may be conscious in the mind, okay? We may be conscious in the vital. But Shelva says in Love in one place, even the body shall remember God. And in Mother's case, it is not the body, it is every cell that is becoming conscious. Okay, and she was fighting that at that level. So this is ultimately that has to happen. Okay, every cell in the body has to become, its consciousness has become obvious. Okay, even in the atom, the cell, there is, as is now made abundantly clear in spite of itself by modern science, a power of will and intelligence at work. Okay. But that power is the power of will and intelligence of the self. And in matter, where is that intelligence coming from? It is coming from the highest level of the self. It has reduced itself, but it is still there very much in matter. Okay. That power is the power of will and intelligence of the self, comma, spirit or Godhead within it. So now he is using these three words, self, spirit or Godhead. Somebody asked me what is Godhead? What is the difference between God and Godhead? So God is the personal aspect. Okay. Godhead is the capacity of being a God. The potentiality of being God is Godhead. It's the principle of being a God. Okay. This is there. Within it. Okay. God is there within matter also. That's what he's saying. Okay. Within it. Even in the atom it is there. It is not the separate self-derived will or idea of the mechanical cell or atom. The divine is there very much in the cell. This universal will and intelligence is involved. It is not apparent, it is involved. Just like the tree is involved in the seed. You don't see it, but it is there. Okay? It is involved. Develops its powers from form to form. The first forms are the living creatures, and then, no, not only that, even the inconscient produces matter, and matter has got forms. Even in matter, there are 100 types of forms. All the elements that we know, when I was at school, there used to be only 80, 90 elements. Now they count more than 190 elements. Okay, silver, gold, platinum, okay, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, okay, then uranium, plutonium, thorium, all these are all forms of matter. Then they have got semi-precious stones. So all these are forms of matter. And when you come to life forms, there are even more. It is to the power n, okay, huge amount of forces. These are all the forms that are being formed, made by matter. Okay. This universal will and intelligence involved develops its powers from form to form. And on earth at least, it is in man that it draws nearest to the full divine and there first becomes, even in the outward intelligence in the form, obscurely conscious of its divinity. So in man, you become obscurely conscious of the divinity in the beginning. Even the savages, when humanity comes up, they feel that there is a power in the wind, there is a power in the water, there is a power in the sunlight. Okay, and they worship that. It's a very vague and not at all very clearly defined, because you can't define the indefinable. Okay, God cannot be defined. So then, even in the outward intelligence form, obscurely conscious of divinity. Note the words very interestingly. And on earth at least. What does he mean by that? Okay, very interesting. On earth at least. He's saying that there can be other systems in the universe which may not be like this. Okay, may not be. He has discussed this in other places also, that evolution is there in the physical world. This is our world is based on evolution. But it is very possible for the divine to create worlds where there is no evolution, or there will be evolution of a different type. Okay, so he has got infinite power. He can do what he wants. So just these 4 words, on earth at least, the suggestion is there that it could be elsewhere, somewhere else. Okay, he has used in Life Divine also. In other places, he has discussed this question. The divine is not bound to create only one world like ours with only fixed laws. He can change the laws, he can make 100,000 different worlds. Okay, so on earth at least suggests that. Okay, it's in man that it draws nearest to the full divine, and therefore, and there first becomes, even in the outward intelligence, in the form, obscurely conscious of its divinity. In man, okay, it's in man that it becomes obscurely conscious of divinity. The animal is certainly not conscious of divinity. It's conscious of its environment, but not divinity. I read the next sentence. But still, there too, there is a limitation in man. Okay, he may be vaguely conscious that there is something called God or spirit, but there also there is a limitation. There is that imperfection of the manifestation which prevents the lower forms from having the self-knowledge of their identity with the divine. So in other words, he's saying, man may be conscious of the divine. That also very obscurely. But in the animal world and below, there is no question of their being conscious of divine. Okay. But still, there too, there is a limitation. What is that limitation? There is that imperfection of the manifestation. Note the words imperfection in the manifestation. So, in the we have discussed this many times. They are fundamental ideas. The Manifestation implies form. I keep repeating this because it's very important to remember this. Then many other questions also which come up get solved if you remember this. So manifestation implies form, because without forms there can't be manifestation. And form is always limitation. And limitation automatically also logically it implies imperfection. And that imperfection prevents the lower forms from having the self-knowledge of their identity with the divine. So only in man, a vague, obscure understanding of the divine is there. Right? Awareness of some sort of divine, but not in the animal levels, certainly not in the plant level, and certainly not in matter. Okay? It is there hiding, involved, but you are not conscious. For in each limited being, the limitation of the phenomenal action is accompanied by limitation also of the phenomenal consciousness, which defines the nature of the being and makes the inner difference between creature and creature. Let's try and understand what he's saying in this one. For in each limited being, I am a limited being, you are a limited being, a cat is a limited being, and a dog also is a limited being. The limitation of the phenomenal action is accompanied by a limitation also of the phenomenal consciousness, which defines the nature of the being and makes the inner difference between creature and creature. The limitation of consciousness goes on varying. He has told you earlier, variable relations of consciousness. So it becomes different for each one. Now the idea of the one becoming the many also is coming in. Okay. So the divine works behind. Indeed, he is there behind and working from there, and governs its special manifestation through this outer and imperfect consciousness and will, but is itself secret in the cavern, Guhayam, as the Veda puts it, or as the Gita expresses it, in the heart of all existences, the Lord abides, turning all existences as if mounted on a machine by Maya. Okay, this is the 61st verse of chapter 18, the last chapter. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani, turning them round and round, yantra rudhani, as though mounted on a machine. How? Mayaya, by Maya. So the divine is very clearly there. The Veda also says that, and the Gita also is saying that. So, this secret working of the Lord, hidden in the heart from the egoistic nature consciousness through which he works, is God's universal method with creatures. The God does not reveal himself here. Okay? He only shows his what he has created, but he is hiding behind. It's like the exhibition hall in which all the paintings are exhibited, but the artist is not present. We don't see the artist. Sometimes in our exhibition hall, the artist also is there and he explains to you what he means by each picture. But here in the world, the artist is very much hiding. Okay? But if you want to know who the artist is, you have to do yoga. And then you will come to know what the artist is. So now somebody is saying, why then should we suppose that in any form he comes forward into the frontal phenomenal consciousness for a more direct and conscious divine action? So now there is a question this review is asking. Okay, it's a very interesting question and it is related to the title of the chapter, the possibility and purpose of avatar group. Why does the divine want to reveal himself fully when he is hiding in everything else? Why is he wanting to reveal himself in an avatar? The avatar also has got a body, mind, life, and he is part of the universe. So why does he want to do that? So now he is answering himself. Obviously, if at all, then to break the veil between himself and humanity, which man, limited in his own nature, could never lift. So he comes down, divine is hiding in all forms, you don't see him, but there is an evolution also which is slowly coming because there is variability. So what man can't do, the divine comes down to give him a helping hand. That is the purpose of the avatar. Okay, so very interesting paragraph. And he is stressing very much the limitation. The limitation which seem to be permanent in the physical world, that's what the materialist thinks and all the pessimists. And the Mayavadins also and the Buddhists. The imperfections of the physical world are permanent. If you want the divine, go outside the universe. Don't be in the universe. But simply saying, be patient and you will see that the seeming apparent permanence of the imperfection in the world is not really true. There is a slow perfection coming up, step by step, in millions and millions of years. So you be patient. But if the individual wants, he need not be patient. He can, with great effort, he can make an effort and he can get the divine even in the physical world. But he has to make that effort. And that effort is yoga. And who helps that yoga? The avatar. The avatar comes down and shows the way. That is the purpose of avatar. Okay? So, 25. So, we have got 15 minutes. We can read the next one. Okay. I went into a little detail because there are so many small things that we may miss. For instance, that on earth at least. It's very interesting 4 words, but you have to see what do they mean by that. Okay. And then also there is the question of the consciousness in the atom. So we know that there is consciousness in the plant, but is it there in the atom? Consciousness in the plant is there because it is seeking. Now, what are the signs of consciousness? I made a note here. Okay. Signs of consciousness. You can say that consciousness is there when there is adaptation of means to ends. This is number 1. I'll give an example. Then secondly, purpose and discrimination. When you see that there is a purpose, then you can say that there is consciousness. Thirdly, mental awareness. Okay. When mental awareness is there, you can say there is conscious. Okay. But purpose, when you see that there is a purpose in the movements in the physical world which seem to be unconscious, then you can say that consciousness is there. And then first one, adaptation of means to ends. Okay. The example of adaptation to means to ends is very obvious. Okay. All vegetation needs water. So in a desert where there is no vegetation, where there is no water, can plants come up? They do. And the plants adapt themselves to the scarcity of water. And then you get cactuses. Okay. So that's one. Then what about animals? Even think of animals. Okay. Without water, animals can't live. But the camel has got the capacity of living with very little water. It stores water in itself and it manages to live. So this is adaptation of means to ends. Or take the other one, okay, the mangroves. I think we discussed this last time. The plants are adapting themselves to the salty water. Normally, if you have a beautiful rose plant and you put salt water into it in the soil, it will die. But this has got the capacity of adjusting itself. Slowly it adjusts itself to this. So purpose, and now example of purpose, okay, the spider creating a web. There is a purpose to it. It's not purposeless. And what is the purpose? It wants food, so it has built a spider web to catch insects so that it becomes, okay, it gets food. So that is the purpose. And discrimination. Discrimination is also another interesting thing. The capacity to distinguish between 2 things, that which is pleasant to you and that which is unpleasant to you. Okay. Take the kidney, for instance. It is discriminating between the liquids that are harmful to it and the liquids that are useful to it. It has the capacity to do that. So that is purpose. So you can say there is consciousness in it. Finally, the most apparent, mental consciousness. So simply saying this, that everywhere there is consciousness in different degrees. And how will you define consciousness? These 3. Adaptation of means to ends, purpose, and discrimination. If there is, you see, purpose is there, then there is, yeah. Another example of purpose is, take a potted plant. Okay, take a plant with a pot and a plant in it. And now you see that the plant is growing upwards. So you want to experiment. You say, okay, it's growing upwards. Let me see what it does when I upturn the pot. I turn it upside down, and now let me see if it grows downwards. So it's growing, so let it grow downwards. But no, it doesn't. It again turns back and starts going up. So there is a purpose. And what is that purpose? It needs light. Okay. So these are all examples of consciousness. Okay. So what I am telling you about these three things have been written elsewhere. Okay. There's an article, The Philosophy of the Upanishads. It's a 60-page book where he has discussed this hidden consciousness. And there he mentions these: adaptation of means to ends, purpose and discrimination, and also mental awareness. Then you can say consciousness is there. Okay. So that finishes the para that we have just now read. Very interesting para, full of details which have to be clarified. So then we go to the next one. The Gita explains the ordinary. It's one page. We can read it. Let's read it. So who will read?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, the other day you were talking about the horoscope.
Yes.
Now I want to know, what about the signs of the zodiac?
Yeah. The sign.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
That's it.
Has Mother and Sri Aurobindo said anything about it?
I don't know. I have not read too much about that. But astrology has been developed to a large extent, and all these zodiac signs, they have their influences, each one. No? And those who know astrology, they know that. So, for instance, there is Shani. Okay, Saturn has got a negative effect on fate. Then there are others, which there is a positive signs. So there are all these have got different influences. Influences can be good, influences can be retarding, and they can also be very negative. In fact, everybody at some time or other goes through a patch where it is, you go through a very difficult patch. Okay, that time your life is going through the influences that are there in the universe in the form of the zodiac signs are influencing you. And that is the reason why this Rahu Kalam, which people mock at, okay, there is a truth to it. Okay. And the truth of the Rahu Kalam, I can explain in another way also. There are forces in time which are helpful, and there are forces in time which are not helpful. For instance, think of the pendulum. Okay. Now the pendulum movement is going like that. Now, if you want to progress and you want to make, I am giving you the example of the pendulum. Suppose you want the pendulum to increase its speed and its reach. Instead of going here, it's going even more. You want to do that. When will you be able to do it? You can't do it when the pendulum is at the lowest level. You have to do it when it is at the highest point. When it is there, even a small tap, okay, it's going up like that, it becomes stationary for a second, not even a second, for a millisecond. Then you give it a small tap, then it increases the speed. But if you give that tap at the lowest level, it will produce a negative effect. In other words, what I'm saying is that in this pendulum of life also, there are moments where a little effort will produce a great result, and there are moments when even a great effort will produce very little effort. I refer you back to the hour of God. If you remember, he used exactly these words. So that is the zodiac signs. They are the ones that create negative influences and positive influences, and also their combinations. Okay, the sun, the moon, okay, Jupiter, okay, Mercury, all these planets have got their own influences. The planets have nothing to do with that. But man has created those things in that sense, and the influences are there. And those planets also refer to some of these influences. Whether the
Rangada,
yes, tell me.
if you believe in it, yes. If you don't believe it, also it affects.
Yes, yes, it does. Certainly, it does. Because our belief or not belief is nothing. We have to adjust ourselves to the.
Ranganath,
Yeah, tell me. Yes,
What
Archana.
I feel, yes, what I feel is rather than the effect of the planet, I mean, it's just my, and whatever I have studied of astrology from that,
Okay, tell me.
the position of the planet
Ah,
show are more indicative rather than positive.
exactly.
Like suppose I am born at a certain mixture of planets, a
Ah,
certain position of planets, a certain combination. So
yes,
that just indicates that my life will have such and such and such and such a trend. Again, there is difference of environment. Like at the same moment, there are so many people who have taken birth, and
yes,
at different places, different environments. So all that also affects. Second thing, even this, which negative periods and positive periods, often those negative periods are the periods in which you can, like Mother and Sharon both tell that suffering can be the point in which you can take a jump. So probably
yes,
those negative periods, what I have also seen in my life, the negative periods which are worldly negative, can
yes,
always be a very positive aspect for our divine, progress if we take it that way. But
exactly,
if we take it that it is a bad period, like the Shanikal, that
exactly,
Sade Sati which we say, or the 2.5 years which are the worst. So in
yes,
that time, either it can help, worldly it may be negative, but it can give you big,
of course,
leaps in your, like, my coming here is in such a time. So just, I wanted to share this
yes,
because
yes. I will
more
add a little.
indicative than positive. Yes,
uh,
sure.
It is indicative, but it is also determinative. Also, you can't say that there is no determination. Okay, then I'll also add to it a little bit. These influences are only one aspect of life. There are 100,000 influences, other influences. What about your own effort? That's also an influence. That also is a factor which is determining. What about divine grace? That also is a. So we can't say that these are determinative. Absolutely. There are other determinative forces also, and their combinations is what creates the your final condition in life. Okay, as I said, your effort, okay, for instance, okay, and what about your divine grace? That also is there. There are all sorts of forces. These 12 forces of the zodiac sign are not the only ones. They are very broad categories. So what Archana is saying is absolutely correct. Even when you are going through a very negative period, okay, you can benefit from them. So these are all but the negativity in this sense that you will go through difficulties. Okay. The difficulties can be turned into opportunities, but that does not mean that the difficulty will disappear. Okay. He says that very clearly in many other places also. For instance, if your psychic is awake, okay, you will take the difficulties in the right way. But there is no escaping from the difficulties. Okay. The difficulties will be there for everybody. Why? Because you are part of the universe and universe is full of imperfections. So these imperfections will definitely affect you at some time or other. Okay. No one can have only a life of misery throughout, and no one can have a life of only pleasant experiences throughout. This is a world of imperfection and variation. There's constant movement here, and that means up and down. So this is the fact. So your own attitude towards makes a huge difference, certainly. But the negativity is there, okay, and positivity also is there. Your attitude is something else to it, okay. In fact, in one place, Mother says that if your life is without any difficulty and you're sailing through very, very clearly, maybe it could be a sign that um, uh, the divine is not bothering too much about you. My words, huh? So, but he says that when you are saddled with many difficulties, this is an opportunity being given to you. It is divine grace that comes. Okay. There is a very interesting video going on YouTube, which says that it's a very interesting one. If I can find, I don't know if I can forward it, but it's very interesting. An old man is saying, "I asked for courage to the divine, and he gave me difficulties. I asked for love, and he directed a lot of hatred towards me." Okay, so it's exactly like that. I asked for I asked for capacity to deal with situations. He gave me problems to solve. Okay. So your attitude is something. But the zodiac signs are different. You can have a different attitude to the zodiac signs. Certainly. A very interesting discussion. And there is so many different aspects to see to it. But what Achanandi said that they are indicative, but you must also remember that they are also determinative to a large extent. But as I said, there are other determinative influences also. Okay, the one who is very tamasic, the determinative factor will dominate. But if you are very sattvic, the determinative factors, other determinative factors will come in. And if you are very already in a divine consciousness, the divine grace is also a determining factor. So many different conditions are there. Any statement that you make in the physical world, absolute truth can never exist in the physical world. It can always be different. Even such a simple thing as physical laws. Huh? Suppose the law of gravity. Okay, when you go 100 miles above the earth, law of gravity disappears, and you go to zero, absolute zero temperature, law of gravity disappears. Okay, so laws are there; they are determinative, but your reaction to them can vary. That is definitely there. Okay, so
What about karma? I
karma
think
Karma.
somewhere mother has said that if you follow Sri Aurobindo's yoga and surrender, then your whole karma gets wiped out.
no, not like that. No. The karma will not get wiped out. You will have the courage to face your karma. Karma cannot be wiped out. The karma will be there. What you have done in the past will come. So this idea is not very correct, Yasmin. The karma will be there, but you will have the wherewithal. You will have the capacity to face your karma, and your attitude can change. You will see the difficulties, as Archana said. The difficulties won't vanish. The difficulties will be there, but your attitude towards the difficulties will change. That is the truth. Okay, we have gone 2 minutes beyond the time, and we'll close today. Okay, so these are very subtle.
Merci.
Okay,
Merci beaucoup.
okay.
Bonne journée.
Bonjour, everybody.
Thank you, Ranganath.
Okay.